Yeah, Kaiden Guhle. I feel like this is a very hot topic around my favorite team, the Montreal Canadiens, and something that I just really have to get my opinion out there on. When the pick happened, I wasn't much of a fan of Kaiden Guhle, but also I could see an upside, a large upside around the pick, and I understood why it happened. But now, as the years have gone by, we're 2 years from that draft, and I honestly am just shook as to why Kaiden Guhle was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. We all know the history with first-round picks and Marc Bergevin, and they have not been good. Since 2012, when Bergevin took over, the first-round picks have been as followed: Alex Galchenyuk, Michael McCarron, Nikita Scherbak, Noah Juulsen, Mikhail Sergachev, Ryan Poehling, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Cole Caulfield, Kaiden Guhle, and this year doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in this video. But yeah, and that's been the one thing when it comes to the draft that Bergevin has put a focus on himself. He is in charge of the first round picks, nothing else really when it comes to drafting. The later round selections are Trevor Timmins and the rest of the scouting team, and that is where Montreal has found more success. And since 2012, Matthias Norlinder, 3rd round in 2019, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, who's looking like a steal, was 7th round in 2019, Sean Farrell was 4th round in 2020, Caden Primo, 7th round in 2017, and Jake Evans, 7th round in 2014. So it's no doubt that those players in the later rounds have been more successful and are going to have more successful NHL careers than a majority of the players have worked out in their Habs tenure from the first round picks. And that's where I say that Bergevin needs to change and just stop making the first round picks. I hope that this is his last year. I wanted him fired after Mayu, and I wanted him fired before that, but obviously the playoff run kind of saved him. And in hindsight, Montreal's gonna live on to regret that decision, keeping Marc Bergevin around. But this video is not about Marc Bergevin. This is about Kaiden Guhle. And Kaiden Guhle is an Alberta native, out of Sherwood Park, played for the Prince Albert Raiders in the WHL, and camp-wise, I'm basing a lot of this video off my thoughts on Guhle during camp, and I haven't liked them. He had a rough rookie camp and rough rookie gains, and has shown that defense and skating, which are supposed to be his 2 strongest points of his games, aren't really even that strong. He's struggled defensively a lot and just not made the right decisions. I've heard a lot of people said out of the draft that he was good at quick decisions, but sometimes I'd rather have a guy wait and make the right decision than just pass it up the middle and give a turnover and that lead to a goal against. And with the guys that he was picked over, I don't think that there's that much time for him to learn from his mistakes. Dawson Mercer is dominating a camp. Same with Jake Neighbors, who was selected 25th in that draft. Mercer went 18th to the New Jersey Devils. Lukas Reichel was 1 selection after him, and that was one of the guys that I wanted instead of Kaiden Guhle. Guhle fits the Montreal Canadiens' defensive scheme really, really well. And his main comparison in the NHL, Shea Weber, who we all know was such a huge piece to Montreal, but he was declining. And I see a lot of recent Weber in Kaiden Guhle's game, not so much prime Shea Weber. And that's what worries me, because recent Shea Weber was costing the Canadiens a lot of games, him playing that many minutes. He should not have been. He was not that player, and in a defensive core that has Jeff Petrie, Brett Kulak, and even Alex Romanov should have been playing more minutes than Shea Weber. The hype around the fan base for Guhle is nothing new from what we've seen from other first-round picks. I remember not just first-round picks. Jacob de la Rose was a super hyped up prospect, and he has turned into nothing with the Canadiens. And I hope that Guhle has a major upside, but I just don't see it. From the draft, I was high on him, and I was kind of pre-draft at the same stage that a lot of the fan base is now. I was really high on Kaiden Guhle when I was doing my first mock drafts. I thought he made a lot of right decisions, but I never took into account and watched enough of him to realize that only his good decisions were being shown, and now I see it, and he reminds me a lot, now that I'm watching more of him, of a Joel Edmondson player, a Ben Sherratt player, even a Shea Weber player, as I mentioned earlier. He's just that Bergevin scheme defenseman, the same kind of style that Berge was himself. And I just don't think Montreal needs any more of those. They ran Victor Mete out of town for being too small, and now they come in with another guy with a big frame, and I can just see the same trend that happened to Mete happening with Mattias Norlinder already, and I just hate to say that this soon, but I don't think he's going to last with Montreal as long as a guy like Guhle, simply based on his playstyle. But Montreal already had a surplus of promising young defensive prospects. Mattias Norlinder, Jordan Harris, and even Alex Romanov. If you follow my Twitter, you know I'm not a big fan of Romanov, but I'd take him over Kaiden Guhle any day of the week. Guhle is just a very raw prospect, and I'd love to be able to give him the benefit of the doubt that would say that he will be able to learn from his mistakes playing a little bit of pro hockey, but go back to Prince Albert and kind of work on that. But I can already see the pattern of him being rushed up, as there's a good chance that he could be starting the season with Montreal. And that's concerning to me. We've rushed so many prospects over the years, and while I don't think Guhle can pan out into anything really more than a solid second pairing defenseman, I don't want him rushed, because that's the worst possible thing that you could do to a player's confidence, and that's one of the only things that Guhle has a lot of. His comparison, as I mentioned, was Shea Weber. They are both very similar in stature, Weber being 6'4", Guhle being 6'3", and they both have very high expectations, not just from the fan base, but there's a lot of people outside of Montreal and outside of anywhere in the prospect community that is really hyped up about Kaiden Guhle. I'm just not one of those people. I see more upside in a guy like Jan Mysak, who they picked in the second round, or even Luke Tuck, who they picked in that same second round, than I do in a guy like Guhle. And with the guys that were picked behind Kaiden Guhle, it really was just like this meme from pick 14 to 17. Habs did address their needs in that draft, however, which I applaud. They did need a defenseman at the time, but now you see more of how deep their prospect pool was. I don't think it is anymore. It's really, really cut and dry right now. But I think that addressing the needs with getting a defensive prospect was one of the bright spots. But there's multiple ways that they could have went instead, and I just don't see Kaiden Guhle panning out. Here's his chart from JFresh Hockey and Patrick Bacon, and as you can see, it's not looking good for his star potential and even his making the NHL potential. I think he'll make the league just because he's on the Habs. I don't like his play style. I don't like a lot of things about Guhle. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this like I do in a lot of my other videos. This is a pretty raw video, not a lot of edits, not a lot of multiple things. I'm just being honest, and I'm really going off just a few notes, no script at all. I don't see upside in Kaiden Guhle, and you can come at me for this with any means. The last time I made a video similar to this about Montreal, it was about Keith Kincaid when he was signed, and I caught a lot of hate for that, and I expect the same thing to happen in this video, that there'll be comments saying that I didn't watch enough of him and that I just have to give him a chance, when really I believe everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and this is mine. Guhle was not the right pick at 16th overall in 2020. and he will never live up to the hype for Montreal. He wasn't the right pick for the team, and honestly, I don't see him going in the top 20 if Montreal didn't take. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Go follow my Twitter. I talk a lot more about hockey there than I do here. And I'll see you guys all next time. Goodbye. But first, there's multiple things in this video that I want to go over and talk about. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
All right, Charles, who you got?
He's either playing in China or Japan.
China or Japan. We need to
That's not the name of the
more
team.
specific.
Guangdong Tigers. Ni hao! Ni hao! Ni hao!